All right. Call this meeting to order, this Topsham Select Board. No address the meeting room. It's August 15, 2024. Would you please rise to pledge allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag, States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Patty, would you call the roll?
I will. Rolling taps.
Here.
Bree Brilliant.
Here.
Ann Callahan. Here. Brian Holmes.
Here.
And I understand that Matt Nixon has been excused. Yes.
All right. Town manager's report.
Good evening, everyone. Sebago Technics has finished the survey work on the Pleasant Point Road, and they have preliminary design ideas that they want to share. We're gonna have a public meeting for Wednesday, August 28th, but we then send postcards to all the residents on Pleasant Point Road. It's also open to anyone else that wants to come, but that'll be here at 6:00 p.m. National Night Out last week was a big success. Thank you to our police, fire, parks and recreation, public works departments for all their hard work. We had lots of people, lots of hot dogs, and lots of fun. Nomination papers continue to be available for 1 select board seat and 3 MSAD 75 director seats. Assessor Hennessy was one of the 2 representatives from our district, was elected to the Maine Municipal Legislative Policy Committee. Our voting interns have added a new Visit Topsham section to the town website with places to go, things to do, and a professional looking promotional video. Please check it out and spread the word. And then the last item is to check your calendars. TDI had asked for a workshop on tips, what they are, what the towns are, what principal uses for them, etc. In working with our assessor and TDI, they've asked for something during the month of September. We don't want to do it early in the month because our assessor's busy finishing up the tax commitment and things. But we were looking at the week because they'd like to have a joint with us, like if you're interested. So we're looking at the week of September 16th. Possible date would be Wednesday, the 18th for a joint workshop, and we're wondering if is interested.
I'm interested.
I'm interested. 18 works for me.
6:00, is that a good time?
Sure.
That's all I got.
Next up, board and committee reports and updates. First, we have an update from the Topsham representative of PNAS Restoration Advisory Board. This is a check.
Can you hear me? Too loud?
No, thank you. Good.
Good.
No, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Okay, my name is Susan Scout. It's actually SCHOW.
Hi.
Not a problem. And I am your representative on the Remedial Action Board for the former Brunswick Naval Air Station. And the Restoration Board is a committee that helps the Navy make decisions about cleanup and remediation of their facilities. The board has 2 co-chairs, a Navy co-chair and a citizen co-chair. Suzanne Johnson, who is a lawyer in Brunswick, is the co-chair for the citizens. And I'm a member. I'm also a member of the Brunswick Area Citizens for a Safe Environment. And all the members of that group are also supporting that remedial action board. So I wanted to touch base with you quickly. I had sent Mark a memo that was shared with the director of the Maine CDC. I sent it about the fish tissue at Pleasant Pond, and I think that you should have that available to you. I just wanted to let you know that the fish tissue is extremely high. It is above the Maine CDC criteria for fish ingestion. So we wrote to find out why we haven't been able to get that posted. No fishing, do not eat the fish. And I heard back Wednesday from the state toxicologist, and he said that they have been evaluating the data and that will be proceeding forward. They'll be issuing an advisory by the end of August. So that means it will be posted, do not eat the fish. We're hoping it will be posted in a multi-language format because a lot of the people over there are asylum seekers, and we're not sure about their English abilities, but they have the ability to do a thing on a phone. I don't know if asylum seekers all have iPhones, but you know, it's a bar and you go with your phone and it'll take you to a website that can give you the advisory in multiple languages. So that's really good news. And I've put a few little notes together just about the background on the facility for you. It'll just take me a moment. I wanted to let you know that the most recent Restoration Advisory Board meeting was held May 22nd and reviewed the Superfund issues related to the base. Among the contaminants and cleanup issues reviewed, most notably were the results of recently conducted biota sampling of fish and aquatic life impacted by the PFAS compounds. The results from the initial testing were posted in a summary fashion, and they identified elevated levels of PFAS fish samples collected from both on and off the former base. PFAS has recently been listed as a hazardous chemical under the CERCLA Comprehensive Environmental Compensation Liability Act. So it's now a CERCLA contaminant, and EPA Region 1 has also established formal maximum contaminant levels for drinking water. But there are no maximum contaminant levels for fish tissue, but these are fish tissue advisory criteria that the Maine CDC promulgated, and those are what we're basing the fish tissue comparisons to. And then,
Can you let us know where Pleasant Pond, I'm trying to think of what Pleasant Pond is.
so it's a little recreation, it's a small pond, it's near
Mirror Creek,
Monaga,
Matamoke.
yes, stream.
Yeah.
It discharges, it's filled with surface water from the base. So what I wanted to convey to you today is that they're making decisions about how the contamination is being remediated, and I feel that we really need to pay attention to this because the Navy could leave a lot of contamination in place. There could be a blight on our community and have long-term environmental, economic, and physical consequences. So the Naval Air Station is now Brunswick Landing and Brunswick Executive Airport. It was declared a Superfund site in 1987, and 40 years later, it's still a Superfund site. But a lot has changed, and it's now the highest density commercial and residential development in Brunswick. And there's lots of contamination remaining on the former military base, the soil, surface water, stormwater, groundwater, and the contamination continues to move off-site. And it's impacting drinking wells, surface water, and groundwater. And a number of Navy properties have been transferred to MIRA, the Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority. And it has a very dense population now with over 1,000 residents on Brunswick Landing. So we're in a phase called the Remedial Investigation Feasibility Study phase of the Superfund process. And this is a decision-making point, and it's the last chance for the town and the community to weigh in on what and how the contamination is going to be cleaned up and what will be left for perpetuity. So about the PFAS, I think a lot of you know they're called forever chemicals. They're thousands of chemicals, and they persist in the environment, and they're very harmful to human health. And we have proof that they cause decreased infant and fetal growth, developmental delays, kidney cancer. It reduces the ability of the body's immune system to fight infections, so they respond less robustly to vaccines, and it has increased cholesterol level in adults and children. So there are a lot of unknowns, but there's a lot of regulatory actions taken, and things are moving quickly. Now, the PFAS came from aqueous film forming foam, AFFF. And that was used primarily for putting out airplane fires. So, and from practices of putting out airplane fires. And that's how it got in. So I wanted to mention that the contamination levels of PFAS are some of the highest in the state. And the groundwater are 10,000 times the new EPA drinking water standard. And the groundwater under the airport flows to the Brunswick Topsham Water District, and it has contaminated the Jordan Avenue well field. So the town public water is contaminated with PFAS. So they have gone out to bid for a improved treatment facility to treat it. And the Navy has agreed to pay for it. But the bid they thought would come back in at 13 million, came in at 18 million. And that's just a small portion of the PFAS that's in the ground. So stormwater is contaminated with high levels, and it's being transported everywhere and discharged off-site, including Muir Creek. And the stormwater solution resulted in the fish consumption advisory. And The stormwater piping system is also old and antiquated. Pipes are cracked and separated with many leaks, spewing contamination everywhere, so it must be repaired. Ultimately, the surface water is going to be Brunswick Town's responsibility. So I just wanted to touch base about the Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority. They manage the former property, and it does have land use restrictions. Mira is responsible for managing water and stormwater, but they transferred the sewer system to the Brunswick Sewer District. And they're responsible for the fire suppression system that's still at the airport. And one concern is there's still over 10,000 gallons of AFFF on base in tanks. So we know that AFFF spills occurred in 2012 and 2019 while under Mira's supervision. AFFF has a lot of PFAS and therefore it's significant risk. And so now, thanks to the Brunswick Area Citizens for a Safe Environment, Navy's agreed to remove AFFF from only hangar they still own, which is hangar 4. But there are hangars they've transferred to Mira, and the Navy is no longer responsible. So we need to consider that as well. So many facilities and states are removing all their AFFF products now, including the Department of Defense and Nantucket Airport, Portland Jetport, and the state of Connecticut. They're just removing them and they're putting in water systems. So we feel that it's important that Mira's priorities be redirected because according to the airport master plan, Mira has spent $30 million in FAA funds, Federal Aviation Administration funds, but only $70,000 went to environmental issues. And Mira needs to put some resources towards environmental management and staff. They need to prioritize the removal of AFFF that still remains and replace it with a non-toxic water-based firefighting system. Because they do have airplanes, obviously, and they do have to have systems for putting out fires that might occur. Replacement, repair, and monitoring of the decrepit stormwater system and keep tenants informed and compliant with land use restrictions. For example, they're restricted, they cannot have gardens on that property. I'm not sure all the citizens are aware of that though, because some of the tenants are unclear about their land use restrictions. So it'd be important that we let them know and be informed because they don't want them growing crops in the contaminated soil. So there's a need for sustained involvement by the local towns to ensure the health and safety of the residents, which I mentioned more than 1,000 residents are now in Brunswick Landing. And especially at this RIFS stage or Meal Action Feasibility Study, because this is where the decisions are going to be made. So we're urging you to prioritize health and safety as a municipal goal and for the long-term economic well-being. And you can't assume that the state of Maine, the Navy, or Mira are ensuring the environmental safety of the contaminated property. Our next RAD meeting is October 2nd at 6 p.m. And they are virtual meetings on Zoom. Or they are now because the Navy has a restriction on travel. Right now they can't pay to travel. There's some sort of a funding thing. And so this is going to be a virtual meeting. And I'd be happy to give the information on how to register and sign in on those Zoom meetings because the more citizens that Zoom in and attend, the more the Navy and Mira recognize that we do care and we are engaged. And so I recommend to attend, to be informed, seek input from me, and require more of Mira and the Navy because the residents all needs. So just briefly, there is a portion of Topsham that was part of the Brunswick Air Station. I think you all are familiar with the Topsham Annex. I joined this organization last summer, so I've only been involved in a year. And the Topsham property hasn't really been addressed in years. Most of what happened occurred years and years ago. I reached out to Scott Libby, who was your previous representative for Topsham on this board, and I asked him about it, and he said that most of the issues that the annex were taking care of, the target shooting skeet range is the one that moved into litigation. So the spent shells and organics, it's primarily at the spot where they were shooting from. A small spot over by the MAMS. I'm sorry, I can't remember what that stands for right now. The what?
Mount Herrick Middle School.
Of course. And the larger issue was the lead shot that was out on the range. This is on Harold Sandlin's land. And the Navy had proposed a remediation to remove something like a top foot of soil over much of the area, as there were quite a few hot spots. However, things broke down, and the last that he knew, it was in litigation. It's my understanding something to do with the landowner, Mr. Sandlin, was not happy with the proposed remediation, the top foot of soil removal, and so he just refused to have him do it on the portion of the land that he now owns. And the Navy was of an opinion that they're not going to mobilize twice to take care of this. So until they can get that resolved, they're not going to do it. So that's, and I don't know anything else about it because it happened way before. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had any.
Question. This may sound silly. What's the difference between PFAS, PFOS?
Okay, PFAS is the overall category. It's almost 15,000 chemicals according to EPA's database. PFOS is one of them. PFOA is another one.
Got
PHSXHP, there's a whole bunch of them. The
Thank you.
two bad ones are PFOS and PFOA.
Thank you.
They're the toxic ones. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, the next item is an update from the Bike and Pedestrian Committee. Evening.
Very much. Glad to be here tonight. My name is Brian Banton. I live on the street with my wife, 2 kids, and my mother. So,
Happy to be here tonight.
absolutely. Just briefly about myself, and I'll tell you a little bit about the committee, what we've been up to and where we're hoping to go with your blessing. I grew up in Brunswick. Actually spent my formative, very early years over in Topsham Heights where my babysitter lived. Moved up north, as I like to say, in 2016. So we've been here in Topsham since 2016. And have been involved with the committee since we got started almost 2 years ago. We've got a really, I would say, a great committee that is a nice mix of longtime residents and new folks.
And you're about to get 2 more tonight.
I understand that. We're very excited for that. So we've been a little bit short-staffed. We'll say we've had 7 members, but we just had a new member join our meeting this week, and I understand we're getting another one tonight. Let's see. I just wanted to mention a lot of our members are parents with young kids, both working in the Williams County District, and we have a number of inside. So safe routes to schools has been something that's come up, and that we're hoping to continue to look at. So as I said, we got started in the fall of 2022. I became the chair last fall, so I've been the chair since 2023. We have, in the time we've been a committee, done a lot of outreach to departments and community groups to try to sort of get the lay of the land in Topsham. We've done a community spokes training with the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, and have advocated on behalf of the Mary Meeting multi-use room. Most recently, we've been advocating for improvements on Forsyth Road, fields, both bicycle and pedestrian, and some parking actually to sort of manage the parking situation over there. Side road. So that's where we've been. When Mr. Waltz joined the town this spring, he reached out to us right away to help us sort of, to encourage us to come before you to seek your blessing to pursue some specific items. So that's what I want to talk to you a little bit right now. So we have sort of a 3-pronged charge that we'd like you to look at, and it sort of revolves around complete streets. Complete streets is a concept that that the 2019 comprehensive plan really advocates for. It's an approach to roads that prioritizes all users, or that designs streets that pedestrians, bicyclists, wheelchair users, that all users can access transportation network. So in addition to complete streets, we've also been talking about traffic calming. We understand that the new speed bumps around Winter Street have generated some interest from the citizenry about other things that we might do around Topsom to control traffic and speed. So traffic calming would be another piece of the work we'd like to do, and also we'd like to play an advisory role. Projects get undertaken, we'd like to play an advisory role as it relates to bicycle and pedestrian interests. So that's what I'm here to ask you for this evening. And happy to answer any questions.
So I have a question. I'm all about the advising staff on matters of bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. I think that's good. The traffic calming toolbox and developing street plans, is this bicycle committee and pedestrian committee expecting that they're going to decide where speed bumps go and that type of thing? Is that the intent?
So.
Or are you going to advise the town on where you think they should be, and then we would?
So we're proposing to develop a complete streets plan for the town. Part of that, or a related piece of that, would be the traffic calming toolbox. So we're just in the initial, we're hoping for your blessing before we really do much. But we've been looking at some materials from other towns. So for example, Yarmouth has a traffic calming toolbox. And just to give an example, someone calls up Mr. Waltz and says, we really need a speed bump on Elm Street. And so the toolbox would give us some tools to evaluate the context and decide what might be appropriate on Elm Street, if anything, in terms of a traffic calming solution. So the toolbox would be a way, it's a toolbox, or would be a toolbox that would allow us to evaluate requests and to make requests. And to have some objective criteria to evaluate.
If I can jump in, first off, I think we were gonna tee this up in two ways. The update was, the update now, then you had a separate agenda item later to actually do the charge.
Right, but I would just ask a question.
So to answer that question, what we envisioned was, assistant town manager has already been doing some work on this.
Okay.
But it's, I think, better for the town to have not just staff come up with ideas, but get citizen weigh-in. So the thought was if the committee worked with the assistant town manager on this, they could develop a policy as to who would make decisions on what things get imposed. That would be developed in the policy, would come before you folks, before it ever gets adopted. So I think the vision isn't necessarily at this point that this committee would say, this is where speed bumps go. Could be that's in the policy, but that's also could not be in the policy. So right now their charge would be to develop the policy as opposed to, and then the details of it will be the result of their research and work with the assistant town manager and other staff.
I think I'd be more comfortable if the verbiage said, along with Topsham staff, that it's not just the committee isolated, that it's a town responsibility.
I neglected to mention, we have a wonderful staff. Chief Hagan is our.
Of course. So, but the verbiage didn't say that. And then the other thing is, if let's say someone from the town says, well, I want my street to be one way because it's too much traffic, but their decision is going to impact the parallel street next door because they're now going to get all the traffic because the traffic is stopped. Those are the kinds of things you really have to look into to make sure that we're not benefiting a particular resident, but it's really in the best interest, assuming that that's what you do.
That's the idea. I'm gonna take a holistic look at the town.
Thank you for presenting it. The handouts were great that you sent to us. It was pretty clear. So thank you.
You have questions?
I do, I'm just trying to formulate one. Complete streets. Can you just dive into that for a hot second? I'm wondering if complete streets to me sounds like a total package that includes traffic calming and some of the other things. So if that's a model to go by, do we need the extra verbiage?
So, when Mr. Waltz sent me the Yarmouth stuff recently, I looked at it and I like other complete streets implementation manuals that I've seen. So for example, Lewiston Auburn has a complete streets implementation manual. It's got a lot of similar pictures. it's like this is different ways to approach road modifications, basically. So I guess there's different ways to think about it, and I guess that's what we're not sure how we want to approach it, but that's why we're asking to do a complete streets plan, and part of that is traffic calming. It might all just be under the umbrella of complete streets.
I guess that's what I was kind of getting at, would be to come up with a plan, a complete streets plan or some kind of manual, if you will, because our town is ever changing, right? And economic growth is happening in certain areas, population density, CPIC, or, the comprehensive plan and the implementation of that is taking place. That's going to take place over the next myriad of years. But to have a manual as we start doing construction as to, should we widen the shoulder while we're doing that? Or, what are the associated costs of that? What are the benefits to the town? And that manual, I think, to have a starting point of looking at that big picture is a great starting point for decisions down the road. And then after having some kind of manual, looking at the town and saying, these are the target areas that we would like to move into. But, having some kind of manual would be probably, I think, the most appropriate way for us to look into the scope of projects.
There's sort of like a what we do and a how we do it.
Yeah.
Type of thing, like a policy or an ordinance is like a what we do, and then there's an implementation side of it, which is more visual and
Right.
As options. Different communities have different, our neighboring communities have approached it in slightly different ways, and we really want to sort of check in with all those folks and see what's working and what's not before we come back to you and say, this is what we want to do.
Because I see the need for bicycle and pedestrian ease, if you will, on the roadways as a big thing, but I also see them as large scope projects. We look at Elm Street and trying to cross under the train trestles on a bike or walking, that's just so narrow. It's just not good. And then when you're coming out of the bypass area of the bridge, it's like come to a complete stop right there and then have a T. And tonight we were discussing, ways to cross from Highlands over to the walking parts, and they're all very large scale. And I think it would be beneficial for us to have a guide of how we implement these large scale things before we start talking about the projects or certain areas or certain things, to which I think would be beneficial overall. That's all.
And I agree. I think what you presented here makes a lot of sense. I think it's good to have individuals that have both interests as well as certain areas of expertise to help us through this process. The ultimate need is accountants. I think that's that. But I think what you discussed, because it shows a lot of interest in it and really get ahead. So I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bryan, for your volunteer work as well. Oh, Ben.
All right, next on the agenda, 2467, public hearing, consideration, any appropriate action on an application for a special amusement permit on 4 Main Street. I like this. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Matthew Kenny. I'm the owner of 104 Main Public House. Here to get the amusement license.
Just walk us through what.
Yeah, so we've been here for 4 years, going on 5 and new next year. We do outdoor music, which we haven't done at all this year, but I still want to be able to. I do more indoors now just because of last year we had to cancel 7 shows due to rain for 30 days straight. So I was like, I'll set that. So now we moved it inside and we go from 9 PM to midnight. We do offer food as well from 9 to midnight. That way people that have alcohol also have food too. And pretty much.
What's your name again?
Matthew Kenny.
Okay, we have your layout here, so.
Yeah. So
Basically,
should
same
be
stuff as always. right?
same setup as always. Indoors, we move kind of all the tables to one side. The band, but bathrooms, then the play to have room. Then outdoors, we rope everything off. That way there's only one entrance and one exit. That way it's safe and sound and people are within the groups during music and service.
And we have notices from police and stuff, fire safety saying it's okay, so that it checks that box. Anything else you want to tell us about this?
No, just try to give some little life to the nightlife of Topsham. As much as we can. And yeah, it's been great being here with Topsham and the community.
Does anyone have any questions?
Think, have you done outdoor music ever before?
Yeah, we had a lot, 2022. And we had 12 shows out there. And so we booked another 12 in 2023. So for 2 months, I had to cancel all those and, some of them still cost me money because, it was the day of and they couldn't book anymore. So I'm not paying people that are playing. Just, it's kind of like on a whim sort of thing now.
I know nobody really lives near there. Do we have any ordinances that ways after a certain,
10 PM.
it's 10 PM?
Yep.
This would be extended to midnight.
So, well, indoors.
Indoors.
Indoors is.
Got
it's not- So we usually do like 6 to 10, we actually do 6 to 9. That way we have like an hour in case the band wants to go, one more time and everybody else always streams that. So it gives us that little leeway up to 10 PM.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions for me? Okay, we'll come out of public meeting and then we on this application. Right, we're out of public meeting and
I would move that we, through the application for the special amusement permit for Main Street.
Second.
moving second, all in favor? Motion carries. By the way, congratulations. I actually read an article here today. It's called A Hidden Gem.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that was the most recent one, yeah.
Yeah.
Had a lot of places. Glad to be on that.
Nice
Thank you very much.
Percent land still.
Well, they come back and say
Oh,
pricing and stuff like that, but if you become a butt clubber, you get that.
no.
Tuesday through Saturday, I believe, or Monday through Saturday. Monday through Thursday. You gonna be a butt clubber? Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
All right. Unfinished business. I believe we're going to table this one. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Public comment. Do we have anybody online? Any hands raised? Correspondence?
I had one correspondence, had an email sent to me from one of our citizens, regarding a FOIA request. It was something to do with the planning board, and the TDI. And something maybe we can put a further agenda over executive session, maybe to discuss.
Anything else?
I concur that we should put this on the agenda for the next meeting and get all of the regulations and, have prepared to discuss things.
Adjustments to the agenda. We do have,
Only thing I'll add to that is it may not be able to be an executive session.
Okay, well, either way, just, I didn't know if I just didn't know, but yeah, I mean, if it doesn't have to be, then no, it'll be.
It was, do you want a consultation with the town attorney or something? That would be an
Yeah,
executive
that would be a
session.
good idea.
I mean,
You don't think it's necessary?
no, I think just to look into the information,
So that wouldn't be executive.
yeah.
So not executive session.
all right, we do have an adjustment to the agenda tonight. We have one additional item in 2470. It's talking about corporate action, about conveying real property. Property. Consent calendar, I believe we have some changes to minutes.
Yeah.
Do we need to approve that for the town to pay that? The adjustment, oh, we're not talking. At the end.
Are you talking about the minutes at this point, Roland?
Yes, sir.
We have one correction on 2462, the detour traffic plan. The motion was by Holmes and seconded by Callahan. Gave that information to the sheet.
Okay, so
I make a motion that we accept the regular select board meeting minutes from August 1st, 2024 as amended.
Second,
moved and seconded, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. What's the process of this?
So I'll just officially tell you that the Balloon Glow and Groove Fest has been canceled. So if you want, you can basically let this item die. You don't have to bring it up the table.
All right, on to new business, 2468, consideration of any appropriate action to issue a charge return.
Do we want to be specific and read the charge as the minutes as opposed to just reading general?
Yeah, we, yes.
Shall I do that? Are we ready for any discussion or do we ready?
I'm curious what people's thoughts are on what we should charge. The timeline was a 2-year timeframe is what they're looking for. And it looks like a lot to accomplish. I'm wondering if there is a way to prioritize or just maybe make it, I'm just thinking more in terms of the complete streets model that I was reading through, and does that cover everything that we need, given the PDF that we received? But should we just have them looking into creating that manual to look at how we deal with pedestrian stuff moving forward? Or do we do what they were asking and kind of put all the stuff in all at once? I'm partial, not partial by the way, just I'm curious what thought.
Well, I don't want to be too restricted. These things happen.
Right.
And come up, so we need to ability to
Agreed.
move, it's the flow of things change.
Maybe we might want to suggest that we get an update every 6 months. So we know exactly what's happening.
I was gonna suggest that maybe it's August, that we come back in February or something to sort of let you know where we're going. I think at this point, we don't want to get too far down any particular path without sort of checking in with you. And I guess I just come back to what I said earlier, like thinking about a complete streets plan, it's sort of like a what we do and a how we do it. and different communities, neighboring communities have approached it in slightly different ways. And so some communities like Yarmouth, Fleet Streets Committee, and talk about traffic calming. Lewiston Auburn is doing similar work under a different rubric. They just talk about complete streets, but they're really doing similar. So, but they both have an ordinance or a policy and sort of a manual or a two.
And the other thing that I was thinking about, including in their charters, maybe prioritizing or creating a list of. Or not, charter, but a wish list, you know, I brought up the train trestles, on Elm Street, and we talked about earlier this evening, in one of our interviews, crossing the bypass. And every one of the committee members that we've interviewed and put on there have talked about different areas of town that they would like. So as they talk about the difficulties biking or having any kind of pedestrian movement, do we want to include in that charge just kind of a list of what are some of the things that they're thinking of that would make this town a little bit more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, and kind of put those in order? Is that something that we want?
If I can jump in, that might be a future step.
Okay,
So I think first it makes sense to have the policy, have them come up with, because parts of this policy may have to be enacted by ordinance. For instance, if we've got requirements for new subdivisions, they need to do certain things with their streets.
right.
Parts of it could be adopted by select board policy, but for instance, if we're repaving streets, if we need to do such or consider this or something. But I think it's hard to say what particular street needs what until you first figure out what your policies to be and your procedures. And then on your first part, the reason why I think staff, we like the broader charge that they proposed is, as you know, and you've had correspondence, we're getting complaints about different streets, people want things. So if this committee doesn't help work on the traffic calming stuff, we're probably gonna need to do it with just staff.
Yeah.
To come bring something for you to consider, but it seems to make sense to consider holistically. So while it's a big mission and it may take a little bit, I think it does make sense to have this committee working on all of it with staff.
Great. So you're in favor of, what they proposed from the beginning of the three parts that they had. It was the complete streets, the traffic calming, and the advisory role for the future. Okay.
With updates every 6 months.
So updates every 6 months.
Or sooner if they need some type of action taken by the board.
We ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
I make a motion to charge the bicycle pedestrian committee as follows. 1, to advise on matters of bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and safety. 2, to develop a proposed completed streets plan. And 3, to develop a proposed traffic calming toolbox. The committee's term shall be extended to August 15th, 2026, and its current membership shall continue. The committee shall periodically report back on the charge to the select board at least every 6 months or sooner if the committee requests action, so that it may provide input and guidance should it choose to do so.
Very thorough, Ann. It's good.
It's a chart.
It's
We
good.
have to have
That's
it charted
good.
on record.
I love it.
The second,
I would second that.
moved and seconded, all in favor?
I'm gonna give it to you, but I have to adjust it, it was changed.
All right, item 2469, consideration and appropriate action on appointments to the bike and pedestrian committee. And we provide a summary of the stuff.
Sure. We met with 2 people talking about the appointments.
Yes.
We met with 2 people. We met with Donald Stein and with Carolyn Ranton. Both candidates, gave us great information about wanting to be on this committee. We have, Mr. Donald Stein is right here with us. And so, he's an avid bicyclist. He's, bicycled all over the world, actually. And so I think he's going to be a real asset to your team. And so I would like to propose a motion to appoint Donald Stein and Carolyn Ranton to the bicycle and pedestrian committee.
The motion and second. And seconded, all in favor? Unanimous. Right, on to our adjustment. Yeah. All right, so this is item 2470. Consideration of any appropriate action. Convey the real property located at 12 Country Lane to Lorette Pulse in return for payment of $3,110.45 by August 16, 2020.
Ms. Holst has been talking to her bank, First Federal Savings, and First Federal Savings approached us and said that they would like to loan her the money to get her taxes caught up, and they're gonna set up escrows for her to make sure she can pay for it in the future. So they have already given us money that's deposited in our safe, not us, the bank. So should you choose to accept the payment as outlined tonight, the money will be deposited tomorrow and the property deeded back to her. Assessor Hennessy, because we're doing it at this meeting, can get it onto the tax rolls for his bills or for our bills that come out this fall. So we don't need to get what we call the foregone taxes because of the fact the property was technically owned by the town April 1st. It wouldn't get a bill for this year otherwise. So if this say happened in November, so that we can't collect money for this tax year, otherwise would have to come up with the money, would have paid in taxes if it had not been by the town. We don't have to do that because if we do it tonight, we can get it in the rolls and then we'll get a bill on the regular course. For this year.
Okay. All right, I will make a motion that we approve the conveyance of real property located at 12 Country Lane to Lorette Pulse in return for payment of $3,110.45 by August 16, 2024.
Okay.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Motion carries. That's it. What if someone to
Make a motion that we adjourn this night's meeting.
Second,
seconded? You're adjourned.
We have 104 Maine application. We want to.
Do you need us to sign that?
Yep.
They were just so cute. I love it when you sing this one.
Sorry.
Yes, yes. You know, this is really, this was the motion. Yeah, I got to there. The select board goes every 2 1. I mean, every take an opportunity. We must have to this much so that we're like, thank you. Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Yeah.